This is part one of a two-part Auld Heids discussion entitled The Crazies.
This is a new voice for a new Scotland.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Auld Heids with myself and Mike Fennick. Tonight we're welcoming guests. You probably know two of these faces really well, and you'll get to know the other one a lot better over the coming months as well. Welcome, Ever. Carol.
You can say,
yeah. Eh?
I was going to say you can say that I've changed my name. I'm Ren because people know me as Ren, don't they? So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know how to pronounce the new one anyway. Carol Claridge and Diane Matheson, who's the first person I've ever had on twice.
Yay! I feel very privileged, thank you.
Right, well, basically, tonight's broadcast, we're going to cover the 500 miles, the original 500 miles, the second 500 miles, which Ren and Carol did to London, and then we're going to speak about what's coming up at the middle of September, St Andrew's Day. Which is going to be 1320 miles, but it's probably going to be using the 500 miles hashtag, although I couldn't swear to that. So basically, let's go. Right. 2 years ago, on the 5th, I believe it was the 15th of September, we were up in Slegachen in Skye, and ready to start. Would you like to give us a bit of your memories of the journey?
Oh my goodness, there's just so many of them. I think thinking to that first meeting, actually, when everybody turned up, that was actually, for some of us, it was the first time we'd actually met each other. So everybody was just like putting tents up and just, yeah, just anticipating what was going to be ahead, because nobody knew, and this was a new thing that none of us had done as a group before. So there was some of us knew each other a bit, others not at all, and we were there in the most beautiful place ever. It was fantastic, and we were just thinking we've got this awesome thing to do. And I actually know right from the beginning, I remember thinking that I have to complete this has to be done. It's so important. If I end up having to sleep under a hedge, I'm not bothered. I've got to do this. It was massively important, and that was the initial feeling that we were going to do something momentous, not just as a group of people. We were on a journey. That was it, and a massive journey, and it was a journey in many different ways. Yeah,
you slept under the hedge a few times, but you when we arrived in Edinburgh, we definitely it definitely made it all worthwhile.
Oh, absolutely. It was It was amazing. It really was an absolute amazing. It was an absolute honour to be involved in it. I think we could never. At the beginning of it, you could never anticipate what the journey was going to be. The journey was more than just a walk. It was a group of people coming together. I feel like it's a family. It's a family. We started a bunch of people, and we ended up like a family, a very tight family. And that within that, it was the love of the people that we met along the way as well, for the cause of independence. It was people. There's one particular lady that really sticks in my head. It was an elderly lady. We were, I don't even know where we were. We were somewhere in the zone, and a car pulled up, and an elderly lady got out, and I think she said she was in her 80s, and she cried, and she gave me a hug, and she said, thank you so much for doing this. So I've been an independent supporter a long time. I'm not well. I don't think I'm going to see it in my lifetime. But to know that there are people who are still fighting for this cause just makes me so happy. And she filled up and cried. And that lady's face I can still see. And it's that sort of love for what we were doing. I think it's just awesome to be part of. Humbling, very humbling to be part of.
Carl?
I'll shut up now.
Yeah, similar to Ren in some ways. I mean, you kind of had an idea when you signed up for something like that. This is going to be something exceptional. This is going to be a rather unique experience. And as opposed to just doing a marathon or something like that, this was for a cause that was extremely important. Particularly at that time, it wasn't quite as bad, but you were seeing the development of things down south, and you knew it was particularly important that Scotland should have had this ages ago, even before Theresa May and Boris Johnson. That's a fact. But you started to see more and more how things were developing, and you thought, no, this is the thing that could potentially change the course. That was in my head, and I felt very strongly about that. So when I signed up to do it, I had absolutely no idea. And the group of us came together. We met at Sky, and I remember very clearly that first evening. We all got there a bit later because of a few delays with people coming together, and we all went to this restaurant, and we got to know each other a little bit over dinner. And then went back to our place. And from that moment onwards, we started to bond in even some of us bonded in a way of deep friendship, such as Eva and myself. And there were others that you bonded on in this cause. We happy few, we band of brothers. It felt very much like we were doing something really important, and people connected all the way. Just as Eva was saying, I remember when we got to one particular place, and there was this, I mentioned it before, but it made such an impression on me. This woman that had basically was being evicted from a farm holding. The building was completely empty. Yeah. But they'd laid on a buffet like no other. And she'd put on this stuff. I thought it was an empty property that they just happened to have around. And she said, no, we're being evicted, but we want, and that really touched me deeply. She got in mattresses to make sure we all slept comfortable, and she got drinks in and food beyond what we could actually eat. Yeah. And she picked us up from the actual city. We drove in a Land Rover there, and we had no idea until a certain point. And she said, oh yeah, we're being evicted, and that's why the house was empty. And I thought,
landowner, landowner was selling
the landowner, this tenancy thing, farm tenancy thing, which is very, very Westminster, really, isn't it? Let's face it. And that thing, more than a lot of, we heard a lot of stuff, but that really made a huge impression on me, that despite all this woman was prepared to lay her cards, lay her money, lay down everything and say, you know what, I've got nothing, but whatever I have is yours, because I really believe. And for me, she was right up there. If people talking about giving medals to the 500-mile walkers, they're the people that deserve the medals, really. Yes. Because the commitment that they put into it, completely without being named, without anybody seeing their photos or their Twitter account, these people did it because they believed in something. And, we got a certain notoriety or prominence out of this. Yeah. which was never really the issue. But people like that, they really, and that sort of joined the dots, because there were all sorts of those moments, you know,
along the way. Yeah.
There were people that put us up, and one of them said, oh, we've just lost, we lost our son a year ago. And there was someone else, they put us up, and they were both the husband and the wife, Ronald and
Ronald.
They were dead literally months after we'd completed the thing, but they so believed in it, and they were so lovely, and you think, we really owe it. Every time something like this, every time I finish, I think, well, that's it for me. You know, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that again. And then there comes a situation that says, yeah, well, I really have to. And the thing is, when you think about people like that,
yeah,
you know, it really, particularly Ronald and his wife, actually, I think, because she must have known at that time that she was dying. We knew she was in discomfort, but we didn't know she was dying.
No,
and she was so generous and so lovely and so giving, and she believed so strongly in Scottish independence. And I think, well, bloody hell, Carl, you can get your fucking... Am I allowed to say... Am I allowed to use bad language?
We won't tell
Get your flipping...
Get your blooming shoes on and start walking. You know? So,
I'm listening to you both. As you both know, I tried to pull together the photographs as the journey went on and try and help out as I could, but I wasn't on the journey. But I'm listening to you both. From Kyle Leakin, you went on a journey of discovery. I think that's the way I see it from what you're saying. Discovering who you were as people, and then discovering some of the wonderful people that you met. Dave, you said there's a book to be written and photographs to be published.
It's really strange, because Carl just brought something up there that's actually in the book that's been written by Dean, who is also one of the walkers, and he took a lot of photographs that are going to be in the book. Basically, almost everyone that we had major contact with on the 500 miles has got a mention in that book, except for the person with a farmhouse. And the reason that her name wasn't given was because it could cause trouble for her. But she was mentioned with a massive amount of love, because this was someone whose family had farmed that land for over 120 years.
Right. Exactly.
And they were being kicked off because and their daughter, I believe, had been threatened with a shotgun if they were one of the landlord's gamekeepers. So it was for what she went over and above the cause. So that's mentioned in the book. For me, the most incredible thing that I actually I saw in the whole thing was after 9 days of consistent rain, for the time we started, we arrived in Fraserburgh, and basically, like about 2 hours before the actual main group of walkers arrived in Fraserburgh, the sun came out, and there was this massive gold sunset, and there's a photograph of it, and it looks like it's been photoshopped. It's not. They were standing waiting for us to start that, and they'd been there for 3 hours, and they had a piper and everything, and marched us right down Fraserburgh High Street. And the thing was, then people were coming out of their houses and waving, and it was, and the local Yes group says, we didn't know about these people. We didn't know they were Yes supporters. And the follow up of that afterwards was that they started to make contact, and Fraser got really, they got a massive amount of feedback from people they didn't know supported Yes, simply because of that walk down the high street, and it was utterly nuts. And that's with the one that's coming up. We hope that the Yes groups are going to be able to take the message that we're carrying this time and do the same thing with all over Scotland, because it's a digital covenant. It's by definition something that happens online, and online you have bubbles. Well, what we're going to be doing, we're going to be taking it right out there, getting out into communities and letting them have something to talk about to people, and hopefully it's going to work out. So,
when's the book coming out, Dave? Do you know?
Well, basically, Dean's been trying to get it published for the last 6 months, and no publisher wants to have it. He obviously doesn't realise how much a market there's going to be. So, as far as I know, he's going to do it. He's going to self-publish it through Amazon and Kindle.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So it's going to be available relatively shortly. I proofread it yesterday for the first time in its finished form, with the photographs and everything. I'm going to send you a wee copy later on.
Just a wee thought. I don't know whether this will work or not, but you know, Andy Anderson has been writing books on currency, etc.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he does that under Andy Anderson Publications. So it might be worthwhile having a discussion. I'll maybe contact him for you. You can, or Dean can contact him. Might be a way of finding out how it can be done, because I know Andy has got his books published by himself, if you like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever as I say, like I don't really know that much about it, but I have read it. Well, actually, I've read it 2 or 3 times now. I read it every time it gets updated. But this is the first time I've seen it with the photographs, and it's a stunning documentary about the trip, and I was a bit in tears yesterday reading the proof.
Does that take us on to these 2 masochists?
So
who decided that is just not enough? Let's do something. Okay, so where's London? Get the map out. Let's go. Can you tell us what happened on that trip?
That happened because there'd been a lot of talk about 500 more, simply because the proclaimers had been such a big part of the, they supported the initial 500 miles. And so immediately people were looking for the sequel. And there were various ideas at various points, and nothing seemed to quite gel, or didn't seem to resonate. Because I was happy in principle to do it, but I think, like everybody, I didn't want to do it just because it was cute. We needed to do it because it was
an impetus. Yeah.
Because it was going to make a further the cause, rather than say, oh, look how great we are. We're doing another 500 miles. And so we were looking at various possibilities, and then it was a bit quiet for a while. And then in March last year, dear old Nigel Farage, who we all respect and love, made the decision, in light of Brexit, which was coming up, which I'm a strong opponent of. He decided he was going to do I think it was something like 230 something miles, and it received incredible coverage. It was everywhere. People were talking about this as if this was Mao Zedong's, or Nelson Mandela's walk to freedom kind of thing.
Puddle marches.
And I looked at it and thought, I have issues with Farage, and I have issues with his particular rhetoric, and I felt initially it was just an immediate response. I thought, 230 odd miles, how cute. And I put that a heading with a picture of us 500 milers on Facebook. And I thought, well, that will show him. And the more I was thinking about it, I thought, we got to take this further. What he can do, 230 odd miles, that's almost half of the 500. And I thought, what he can do, we can do twice, and without all that stuff.
And the
So
right before him.
I phoned Ren and said, just so you know, I'm leaving for Westminster in 10 days. And the idea is that I get there a day before Farage and his cronies. Yeah. And so I spoke to Ren about it, and Ren said, well, I'm coming with you. So anyway, we hadn't got any money really. And the thing was, Nigel Farage at the time, he was charging like £50 a head.
Charging people to do it.
People to do it with him. And I said, I don't want any finance. I'm not going to ask anybody for any financial support. I'll just make do. I hadn't got the money. I was using my rent money to do it, but I thought it was so important, I had to do it. And Ren was of the exact same thing. So I mentioned it to Cliff Servey, because he'd done the, we'd met him and got to know him, but he'd also done the high-vis jackets, and mentioned it to him, and he was incredibly good. And he said, oh, I can do the support group, and I'll set up a site. And he did the jackets for us free of charge. And he was like the go-between, because we were heading down south through England. And although we're both English by birth, we knew that it could be potentially controversial. We wouldn't be on friendly territory necessarily, being so blatantly Scottish with our idea. So that's basically what we did. And the thing is, people, all of a sudden, people were saying, how can we help? Here's some money. And you know, somebody said, oh, if people want to support you, how could they? Say, no, we don't need that. We just want it. We just want, and people would say, no, you know, here's some money, get yourself a meal. Oh, here's some money, because we were planning on wild camping most of the way. In the end, we only camped, we probably camped for a week or so of the whole entire thing, you know. And it was so great how people, the situation created the momentum where people wanted to be part of this, and it got a lot bigger than we ever intended, to be honest.
Was there a story about something about going down the side of an embankment into the woods at night because when it was dark?
Oh, no, I'll tell you what did happen though. Well, I don't know if we ever mentioned this. Well, there was one nearly falling down an embankment because it was dark. But no, I don't know why this always seems to happen. But there was a guy, there was like a body at the bottom of an embankment.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And it was kind of...
St. Albans, that was St. Albans.
Yeah, there's a person down there. Anyway, we weren't quite sure whether it was like, because they're kind of half covered in leaves, whether it was actually a dead body or whether it was just like, you know, somebody who just like decided to have a sleep at the bottom of this embankment. So, we kind of started going down the embankment, and the next thing, this guy launched himself out of the leaves, and he had this massive pole with him. It was taller than him. It was like this about 7 foot long pole. And he started swinging it at us, and he ended up throwing it at us, actually. And I think it was just some guy who was, you know, I think he might have been perhaps a bit under the influence of something, under some leaves. But yeah, that was, and we thought we'd found a dead body. That was St. Albans. That was Albans. Albans. That was it.
Yes,
so that was
St. Albans.
Yeah, we had It was a very different walk. It was a very different walk again, because it was when I say most of it was in England, it was actually you don't realise how far, because we walked from Edinburgh through to Glasgow, and then down the like the footpath by the 74 down that way, and you actually don't realise how much walking we actually did in Scotland before we hit England.
It was a considerable amount.
It was, and then in England, again, talking to people, because a lot of the talk at that point in time was about Brexit, because that was coming up. And it was actually amazing the amount of positive support we got from English people who were going, yeah, if we were Scottish, you know, we'd be out of this. And it was Theresa May was as the Prime Minister at the time, and the venom that came out from a lot of people about Westminster was I don't know if it was surprising, but it was very, very obvious that there was a lot of discontent down there about what was going on with Westminster. Yeah.
Even those that didn't necessarily understand the Scottish cause or necessarily agree, not all of them agreed with the Brexit issue, and not all of them agreed about Scottish independence. But the one thing, and I mentioned this in an interview before, the one thing we did discover was there was an enormous disdain for Westminster.
Absolutely.
You know, if we started from the point of, although it was clear we were representing Scotland, we had our saltire scarves, and we had our saltire flags, and everything like that. Everything screamed.
And jackets. And
I'd even got my haggis on a leash half the way. You know? And you know, it was clearly Scottish, and some people warmed to that, and other people, you know, not so much. But if they knew your issue was with Westminster, there were very few exceptions. One pub in particular, and you know, a couple of individuals on the way down. But statistically, everybody agreed that yes, Theresa May was a bit of a, and everybody agreed that they really didn't give a about anybody else.
Yes, yeah. Do you remember there was 3 little boys in that council estate? Yeah, I've forgotten what they, but there was a lot of swearing.
That was in Rotherham, yeah.
Yeah, and what they suggested that we might do with.
They suggested that Theresa May should align her head in a strategic position to the American president. So,
that was right. Yes. Yeah.
Putting it nicely.
Yes. Yeah.
We said this on a video, and somebody tried to remove our video for being offensive or something like that.
But that was it was just reporting.
We were I was careful about how we related that situation, but yeah.
It's a kind of strange position, isn't it? That when you
it was for Theresa May,
but no. I wasn't heading in that direction. I was thinking Westminster.
We've moved on.
I've moved on. We're trying, and we will succeed to be rid of Westminster.
Yes.
But in a way, you have to feel very, very sorry for the rest of the UK.
Yes.
Exclude Wales, exclude Northern Ireland.
Definitely.
You can't escape what's going on in Westminster.
No.
That day of reckoning will come at some stage. And I think it will be helped when Scotland gets rid of Westminster.
Yeah.
I think the English will begin. I'd phrase that differently. People resident in England will begin to wake up to actually what's going on, which at the present time, I don't think they really do.
I think some of them are.
Yeah.
Oh, Mike, when in 2014, I was still in England, and I sat on my sofa and watched the referendum and cried. Then this is me in England, and I cried because I thought, unless Scotland breaks free from this union, then we, as in me, then living in England, and the rest of the people like me who are living in not the best conditions, people like me have got no hope. And I was actually looking towards Scotland to break free from the union, because I felt that would give us some hope, because the politics of England would have to change, because the politics of England cannot continue as it is.
No.
It's destroying. It's destroying its own people. It's
I
there,
was
yeah. So,
I was born in East London. I come from East London, and I was raised in central England. It was an area known for shoemaking until Margaret Thatcher ruined the whole industry, amongst many others. And now I'm in Scotland, and it gets a little bit tiresome trying to explain that you're not anti-English. I was very proud of being born in London, and I was proud of even the area where I grew up, which was pretty rough. People were doing their best to try and make the best for their families, as all of us are. And the thing is, all of them were equally affected, which is something we also saw with the second 500, that a lot of people were recognizing that. And the only difference is that the elites seem to be a bit more blatant about their behavior. It's like several hundred years ago where they didn't even have to pretend to give a damn about anybody else. And in 2014, I was at work in central England listening to it, and I was just glad I didn't have an opinion either way, because I didn't feel entitled because I wasn't living in Scotland. But I was happy that Scotland at least at last had the opportunity to make a decision on what had been imposed on them, which was basically a forced marriage. It was a forced marriage back then. And I thought, well, okay, whichever way Scotland decides, that's how it should be. It's not for me to say they should have independence. It's not for me to say they should stay in the Union. But it became quite clear very quickly that Westminster hadn't really allowed that choice. And it seemed as if everybody had, they voted on it, they decided to say, but they didn't. And more we've been seeing the tactics they've been using to try and take that away from the Scots.
I kind of promise.
So we need to stop pretending that it was actually a fair vote. We know jolly well that it wasn't. That sounds really British, doesn't it? But it sounds really well. It's only because I didn't want to say fucking. My mum's wanting to watch this at some point.
I kind of promised Dave that I wouldn't do anything too political and get away from this, but I'm going to just insert something here.
Sure.
There's probably on the surface 3 ways that Scotland can become independent. Mm-hmm. One will be people signing a referendum and voting yes.
Aye.
Yeah.
The other will be the number of votes cast at next May's election. Yeah. The third, and for me, the absolute desirable criteria is the covenant, which is what your walk is going to be about.
Absolutely.
Because absolutely deep down, what I would hope Scotland will do is declare its independence, not through a leader, not through a political party, but that history will record
exactly
the independence came about because the people voted for it themselves.
Yes.
Exactly.
Via the covenant.
Yes.
And that is recorded 100%. In history as how it happened.
Absolutely.
Because we got here from 1707 because the people were excluded.
Yeah.
This time round, I hope it's the people that achieve it.
It was the Tories of the day, basically, that voted for Scotland to be part of the Union. Let's face it. They sold out Scotland, and it was the barons and the landowners. Well, the barons and the landowners are the modern day Tories.
Yeah,
they are.
Tune in at the same time next week for part 2 of this discussion.
This is a new voice for a new Scotland.
And in life, talk radio.